Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for To Your Eternity, chapter 165.2. When we last left our heroes, everyone started to move on after the Man in Black, the Beholder's passing into Sadaru, as Fushi really started to ponder his final message. The bit about, will living a long life or defeating the Knockers really contribute to your happiness in the way that you think it will? And so Fushi begins to ponder what would happiness mean. He, has conversations with the entirety of the Renmir trio, and they give him each different answers in line with their characters. And then, Fushi sees Sadaru sort of living his life because the Beholder personality has left him, leaving Fushi with a little bit of a kind of happiness. And then 60 years pass. So that said, let's jump into what we have now learned is the final chapter of the in quotes second arc, before a 3-month hiatus. So let's dive right on in. We open with what looks like someone in traditional Japanese robes. Gosh, you're going out of your way to attend? Thank you so much. But some old friends who don't know your true identities are also coming. What should we do? Well, I think burning incense will be more than enough. A lot of people will be attending, so it's probably safer if you just blend in with the general crowd. It's a little bit unclear what exactly is being talked about here, but we see that the woman in the more traditional clothing, her hair is very reminiscent of Aiko, even though it's been 60 years. I'm not sure Aiko would still have dark hair. Sorry for all the trouble. I think it would be a good idea to attend quickly in your street clothes, then leave right away. And then we see Fushi, who is, of course, still 14, and it is Aiko. Aiko, your family's treated me very well for all these years. Thank you. He really did live a long life. And Aiko, who we see, doesn't really look 60 years older. Looks like she's maybe 50, but not 70. Laughs. I'm sure my brother would be thrilled to hear you say that. And we see the funeral is for Yuki. Number 165, A New Time, Part 2. Yuki, by the way, does look much older. He looks like Yuki aged a great deal. Aiko looks like she's wearing some, old age makeup, and that's kind of it. But we get, a news report about Yuki. Today, the funeral for the leading Knocker researcher, Professor Emeritus Yuki Aoki, was held today at Minamoto Funeral Home. Beginning with Bonus Award winners, the elite from various fields attended and lamented his passing. My question is, what has, kind of become of Knocker studies? I mean, apparently it's a respected field. Yuki is no longer seen as being some weird occultist. So we'll see what all comes of that. As a young man, Aoki-san gained much attention by developing, among other things, a cream that prevents Knockers from invading the body. Okay. That's one way for peace, I suppose. Nowadays, the Kaibara Cybernetics Corporation's microchips handle Knocker control, but Aoki-san is loved the world over as the first person to unlock the potential of Knockers and mankind. And we see he still worked with Nono/Michi during the cream thing. And the question that raises is that if Knockers just aren't possessing people at all, how is there any kind of interaction with them? Because that was sort of the thing of their interactions, is that by the second arc, they had to possess people. But then we see an older Nono, being interviewed about Yuki's passing. It was thanks to him that I lived such a fun life. I want to express to him my thanks. And we see Fushi watches that, and it's a little... I know that the unagingness of Fushi is, part of the point, but, given how, constantly Fushi's friends, re-age, controversially with Tonari, or de-age, controversially with Tonari, of course, but, we always see them in, the age we met them, to see the older Yuki and the older Nono and the older Aiko, and then Fushi still the same is, I know it's the point, but it is a little unsettling. And then there's March, who still looks like a little girl. Maybe Bond died. And Fushi, gaining his body again, has the spirit ability. And March has maybe also died? Which is a shame, because she wouldn't have been terribly old. We age in the blink of an eye, don't we? And Fushi tells her, you sure do. Things have gotten pretty lonely in this house. This. I thought it was March for a second. It's Fushi. Aiko says I can live here as long as I want, but everyone in the neighborhood thinks I'm dead. And we see Grandpa on like a sort of shrine area. I think those are Yuki's parents, and then someone who might be Yuki. I'm not quite sure. But Fushi just says, I have to leave this place and find a new home. And I think this is Fushi's line. Oh, where do you want to live next? I'll take you anywhere you want. But March tells him, you're getting ahead of yourself, Fushi. That's right. Sorry, March. And okay. That's a weird line. Because March then comments this sort of very, like, meta bit. Let's see. I'm all about my energy and adorableness, right? If I can stay cute and energetic forever, I'll live anywhere. And also, all through this, we've not seen March's face, which is a little unsettling. But Fushi tells her, no matter what you're like, you'll always be yourself, March. Oh, and she has aged. She's just has stayed short, or she's like become a granny and is like shrunk down again? Okay. I don't know. I don't really agree with the decision to keep her proportions like 5 years old, while her face is like old. But March tells him, yeah, thanks, Fushi. And Fushi questions, what do you think of life here, March? Did your dream come true? And March sort of like thinks back. I think I said my dream was being a mommy. And there's this awkward pause before Fushi says, you never got any attention from the guys, did you? And March just looks aghast at him and just snaps. How insensitive, Fushi. That was low. Oh, I'm sorry. I was too popular. I just couldn't find anyone that caught my eye. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. It's an old lady March is a very interesting dynamic, given that she always, as she mentioned a couple pages ago, been defined by that very childlike earnestness or energy, and what was the line? Energy and adorableness, sure. I don't know. It's she definitely comes across as older, but it's an interesting dynamic. And Fushi laughs, but I love the way you're still holding on to your dreams, March. And March pauses if we're going right back to hitting her wayward son. Do you think I'm going to forgive you because you said that? Ow! Ow! Hey. And it's everyone else who haven't aged. Or maybe they are all ghosts. Because all of them have not aged a day in the past 60 years. It makes me feel like it's the whole gang. It's Gugu, it's Kai and Hyro and Messar and Bon and Tonari and Echo. And Messar tells him, come on, we gotta get going. And Fushi tells him, okay. And he helps March up. My guess is that all of them have died, which is a little sad for Echo, who is also not very old. And then been brought back in their original forms. And which would tie in with Aiko's comments earlier in the chapter about everyone thinks the whole gang is dead. She says who know your true identities, plural. So yeah, I guess so. We don't get a lot of context there. But they all get up to go to Yuki's funeral, leaving. We have a wide exterior shot of the Aoki estate with the forest and everything. And then I don't know what this is. We just cut to something completely different. What looks like a water. There's a Bill Cipher looking triangle thing hovering over the water. There's some, like, mangrove islands, and I don't know what's in the top left corner. But there, we see, like, a little girl who sees the triangle, and on top of a mountain of rubble, just says, I gotta go. And that's where we leave off until late January. So, I don't know. I kind of wish we got to see a little bit more of those 60 years of, like, you know, some of the specifics, especially in terms of, like, how the world, how the human-knocker relationship has expanded. Though I imagine that will be a big part of the third arc. I don't know how to comment on the triangle thing, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to treat this part of the retrospective as if that didn't happen. But anyway, like, I imagine we'll spend more time once the series comes back dealing with, like, the specifics of people's lives and rebirths and all that. Like, that's a thing to sort of examine some more. But it is just a sort of, like, it's just a sweet little chapter, you know, as Fushi reflects on going back to some of the series' earliest themes, this sort of inevitability of passing, of things ending. And, you know, the rebirth ability is always kind of cut into that. But, like, we see it here as Fushi looks around the empty house. You know, which actually, the fact that, like, presumably, if the gang was alive, they would still be living here. Which makes my best guess that, like, they were dead and Fushi maybe, like, brought them back to life for the funeral? Which would be an interesting little beat there. I'm curious if that's the intent. But anyway, I don't know. We'll again find out more about that in January. But, you know, the bit with old March is, like, a nice mix of being distinctly March, but also she is not, like, a 6-year-old anymore. She is distinctly, you know, in pushing 70, which, like, it would make sense that she's the one who doesn't die, because, like, she is very young. Though, honestly, like, none of them would have to be dead in their 60 years later, because, like, you know, even the oldest members of the group were, like, in their early 20s. People live to their 80s. They don't have to pretend. I mean, I guess they can't quite control their age. But still, I don't know. But yeah, I'm mostly interested in the, like, first 3 pages, the bit, like, reflecting on Yuki, because, you know, I loved Yuki. Yuki was a fun character. And I miss him. Like, maybe he'll come back, just, like, maybe he doesn't go to paradise, maybe he sticks around and Fushi revives him or something. But for now, he's gone, and he's lived his life, and maybe he doesn't want that. Maybe he wants to move on to paradise. I don't know. Which is, it's a sweet thought, a sweet ending for Yuki, beloved, you know, seeing him go from, like, the kooky guy in the occult club who no one took seriously, even as recently as the graduation, when everyone's sort of blowing off his knocker article, to being, like, the celebrated researcher into you know, alien life. It's a sweet ending for him, and I hope as the next arc picks up in January, we'll get to see a bit more of, like, how his influence changed the world. We see very little of that. Also, like, what happened to Mizuha after her little goodbye note to Fushi. There are plenty of things that need answers now that we're 60 years in the future, and that's before we get to those last 3 pages with, you know, the triangle thing, and the mountain of trash, and the little girl, and I don't know. I presented the theory in 164.2 that the knockers were the other people in that higher dimension. You know, the shared use of paradise, and some other things in that chapter that I'll the exact details of it are escaping me. Led to at least the concept that maybe knockers who we know came from outside the world could be the beings we know are outside the world. But maybe that's not it. Because my first guess is that maybe this little girl is one of those things. One of those other beholders. Or maybe it's a sign of knocker advancement. Like the other beholders are knockers. But now, whereas in the past they could only be the orb things and then like possess people, now they can create their own bodies? I don't know. That's the sort of thing that we'll be sort of chomping at the bit to find out about for the next 3 months. But for now, this is the end of To Your Eternity. And it's not much of a final chapter for a series, but as, a little sweet epilogue to the second arc, and a tease for what's to come, it works very well. And I can't wait to see what weird ideas Oima brings us for this third arc. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter, and the video itself, and the arc for that matter. It had some rougher moments, but it also soared from time to time. And if you did, feel free, not from time to time, all the time, honestly. And if you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!